particular questions to members only. This question inspired me, and I'm going to make this video public. And I will say thank you for keeping it real for me. You, my members, really inspire me with your questions. So I am going to read the question and then address how I dealt with it, with my fear, anxiety, fear of confrontation, fear of being reported, fear of a bad review, fear of a poor quality control or complaint. Here is the question. I love what I do and I do it well, but I have a lot of anxiety. I hate confrontation. Can you give me any tips how to keep my cool dealing with stressful situation? Get anxious because I don't want to feel like I will be reported. The fear is that they won't want to keep me in the route of calls. Maybe the solution is to practice, also find other jobs so I feel abundant in my opportunities instead of feeling like I'm only limited to one working place online. I will address this. Let's start with fear. Fear usually it's coming from a childhood trauma, and fear is coming with a subconscious belief, I am not good enough. The fear of this, I think every person that works as an interpreter or a language provider, they have this subconscious fear, subconsciously, that they are not good enough. Maybe they compare themselves to some computer or some super duper professional people that are extremely punctual. That exists in the movies only, unfortunately. But the fear of reporting you, it's a subconscious fear of not being good enough. And I did suffer from this fear when I moved here to USA. When I was working as a business interpreter in Europe, I never had this fear or problems. I was working in a trade fair, business to business, government to government, and my interpreting position was also a little bit negotiator. I was helping a governmental representative to purchase services, for example, water purification service system for the city, or Wi-Fi cells, different, I'm talking about huge projects that they will come and see prototype on the trade fair, and then they will discuss different opportunities and exchange numbers. And that would be normally a business negotiation. There would be no money, but there would be just some performances of those products and services that the government wanted to purchase or develop. Said that, I work in a lot of ecology, purification water, technology. I did work a lot in technology, well-being and fitness, ice cream, chocolate, hotel trade fair, interior exterior design, fabrics, tourism. I saw so much beautiful things in those fairs, and I loved what I did. And I never, despite that every fair was very different from another, I never had any anxiety or worry about I will be reported, I will provide poor service. None of that was my problem. And I did provide simultaneous interpretation in most of those. So I was treated with respect. Nobody interrupt me, disrespect me, name call me, put me down, or offend me in any way during this work in the trade fair. I experienced this here in the USA. And unfortunately, my fears was the reason why I tolerated this abuse in my workplace. The truth is that you are not there to scream with anyone, and you're not there to argue with anyone about your interpreting abilities or about your knowledge of a language. If somebody says that they don't understand you, you can politely apologize and withdraw from the call. If a call makes you feel uncomfortable, you can politely, respectfully decline, saying that is above your knowledge. You are not obliged to do anything that makes you feel uncomfortable. You don't have to stay on a call and scream together with another person trying to prove your rights or trying to interpret a message or trying to make a point. The reason that I'm sharing this information with you is because in the first years, maybe providing services here, I was thrown into this mud pool providing services for Siracom, where I did had a lot of anxiety. I did start stuttering, and I did have a lot of fear to be reported or fear to be called not good enough or not on the level or something like that. And I would try so hard to help, to be useful, that I would let people walk all over me. I would handle calls where I am name called every phrase and called words and scream at and literally verbally abuse at to the extreme of the level. The Sirocom company customer service would threaten to disconnect my contract if I refuse to take a call. Just so you imagine the level of abuse I was tolerating because I was afraid of confrontation. And when I finally got the guts to face that and to admit that I cannot tolerate this anymore and I would not deal with that disrespect, they disconnected my contract. I felt worthless. It hurt me. I really felt very, very bad because I was trying so hard that I felt I was insulted. I felt it was unfair. And then a year later, Sirocom pretended that my contract is still active and they really tried very hard to continue this contract and pretend that I was still working for them, because I believe that they went and they probably listened to most of my calls, and they saw that 99% I did exceptional services. Indeed, I had some horrible calls, but they compared me to the rest of the pool and they realized that I was doing a great job. So they tried to recontract me with the same conditions, but luckily I had the clients that paid me better and treat me better. So definitely having various clients that you provide services for is going to help you to see how different companies treat you. Every company have a different way of treating their interpreters. For example, CLI, in my opinion, were really horrible. They are even worse than Sirocom. They were so horrible that I disconnect one language and then I disconnect the second language on the spot. They were just horrible. I will tell you, horrible. That was my experience. Extremely abusive, extremely disrespectful. I don't remember one positive thing about CLI. So said that, definitely experience different interpreting services you can experience in person at the school, workers' comp, legal, police, immigration court, civil court, criminal court. There are so many services that you can experience providing interpreting for, that you will find which one you actually like and which one you're passionate about. Let's go back to the anxiety. I will tell you what I learned about this. I don't feel like I want to be reported. You don't have control about being reported. You can be reported even when you feel that you did exceptional job. I remember the first complaint I had with Sirocom was maybe after 2 years I provide services for them, more or less. I was reported because insurance company was trying to force a person to sign to resign a contract with a different terms over the phone, lying to him, trying to fraud him to sign something which will increase his insurance and prolong his contractual agreement. So I remember that they reported me, and I said to Kiracom, it's fine, they did report it me. Yes, indeed, I negotiate for the client in the role of advocacy. This is the only time in 10 years that I ever advocacy for someone, and I speak on the behalf of him because I was feeling that he's going to be abused, if not understanding that this saying yes over the phone will change his contractual agreement for his insurance and prolong it for 1 year longer, which he didn't want to do. So, and I said to them, if you guys want to report me, if you want to disconnect the contract, it's okay with me. I just feel that I did the right thing and I'm proud of myself. And it's okay if you don't stand behind my decision of protecting the consumer rights. Said that, yes, I was reported. Yes, I was afraid of that. But yes, I believe that I make the right decision. So I did not have any regrets. And when they called me, I was very calm and collected. I explained my reasons, and that was it. I don't think many opportunities are going to make you feel better. I think the fear of being reported is come from the fear or subconscious belief I'm not good enough. And this subconscious belief comes from a childhood trauma where you were criticized or put down or called something by your parents or legal guardians. And your insecurity comes from that, from this subconscious belief coming from the childhood. So I would address you to definitely work with a therapist if that's something you can consider, or do it by yourself, trying to understand your limiting beliefs. I will advise you to follow. There is this guy, he's a relationship coach. His name is Matt Schiffer, and he's an Australian guy, and he had this class called The Ladder of Your Values, I believe. It was like an online training. He's a dating coach, and the training was for dating and relationship. I did it for personal growth. And so where you were able to find if your belief corresponds to your actions or things that you do. So I would advise you to do some self-work and healing and try to understand where this fear of I'm not good enough come from. I think most of the people have a second fear, which is the fear that they may cut the contract every moment. This is the truth. Most of your clients can cut the contract any second without any reason. Just disconnect it, and you can do it the same. You don't have a reason. You could say, I am busy with other things. I don't enjoy working for you. I have other projects. I like to disconnect. There is no reason that a person or a company can disconnect a contract with you. If you're a freelancer, they can cut you anytime. And that would be without any reason, without any complaint. They can simply disconnect the contract because they are overstaffed or something like that. So indeed, this is not like when you're an employee and they're gonna fire you, because you have the same opportunity to disconnect the contract. So if a company disconnects a contract like Seracom did, they disconnected it, and then after a year they pretend the contract was active. Said that if a company decides to disconnect a contract, there is nothing you can do about it. Yes, it hurts. I was very hurt when Seracom disconnected a contract with me, but it also taught me. I was thinking I provide excellent, in my opinion, services for 5 years. I did them more than $500,000. These guys did great money on me, off of my job, and all they did was negative criticizing, putting me down, neglecting me, ignoring my requests, not responding, and that was only nasty communication that was coming from this company. There was zero acknowledgement, zero positive feedback. It was only bad. And the way they were maybe I had two or three calls, maybe 2 calls total from their quality department. The calls were always negative, and I would receive so much negative feedback emails that I feel like I was the worst interpreter on earth, believe it or not. I felt so horrible providing services for this company. I felt my worth was zero, and I felt like this company was doing me a favor keeping me there in their staff, because I was so horrible and worthless, because the communication coming from this company was just so negative and toxic. Said that if you are tolerating this type of treatment or approach toward yourself, you should work with yourself and ask yourself why you tolerate that. What's the reason that you stick with a company that treats you like that? The truth is that you cannot always provide maximum services, and you cannot always be perfect or great or good. But there is a healthy way to provide a feedback. And I can compare now Siracom with LSA. I do provide services with Language Services Associate right now, and yes, indeed, I do receive negative feedbacks. This is true. And every time I receive a negative feedback, the quality control calls me, they pull the call, and they try to teach me where I can get better. And I am saying to myself, if they got pissed at me because I am trying to learn with them, I am growing with them, and I'm trying to be better and better every day. And the reason that their feedback is useful is because it's constructive. They're telling me where I did good on the interpreting, omissions, protocols, politeness, professionalism, customer service. All of that is good for me. My only lack of professionalism is on the intervenience. I know this, and I'm trying to work with that. And they are working with me, and I'm grateful for the feedback. But if a company only nags you, puts you down, and give you a general statements of neglectful, abusive description, horrifying your services, you should ask yourself why you provide service for this company, why you tolerate that. You should not be okay with that. And if you are okay with that, you should look back in your childhood abuse and trauma and work with them until you're comfortable enough to stand boundaries for yourself and to request to make a respect a requirement, because there is a healthy and respectful way to give you a negative feedback and to request you to be more professional, polite, or to do certain things the way your clients want you to do it, professionally, with respect. I believe one thing that I learned from the very few negative feedbacks from Siracom, I remember when they called me, they would scold me so harshly, and they would be so critical and just nullifying of my abilities that of course some of those feedback I disagree with, and I remember that I tried to explain my reason why I handle a certain situation in a certain way, and they would start to get into argument with me and try to convince me that I'm so worthless. Again, toxic way of treating me. And then being anxious, aggressive with me, and just nullifying, not listening what I'm saying, not giving me any constructive feedback, to the point that I will be like, I'm not here to argue, you know. So you don't have to prove anything to anyone, that's the truth. But if I can give you one positive and calming feedback, the moment that you receive a quality control call and you have to discuss some of your errors with the quality control, you have to be polite and respectful. I do listen what they say, and I do take notes, believe it or not. and I am asking them for a feedback. How can I improve that? How can I make it better? And the reason why I do this is because I use the feedback to grow. There is nothing wrong with not being perfect, and there is nothing wrong with not being you can have a difficult cold, and more calm you are and more ready you are for those difficult calls, better you're going to perform. So you should never think about reporting you or bad review or anything like that. When you're on a call, you should focus on the things that you have control over. And the things that you have control over is interpretation quality, politeness, kindness, and setting boundaries, setting the session. So sit down. I will advise you to read this book, which has nothing to do with interpreting, but is good. It's a book called Think Like a Warrior, Inner Beliefs That Will Make You Unstoppable by Darren Donnelly. And the reason why is that this book a little bit I haven't finished it. I almost finished it. I have maybe like 20 pages left. But this book kind of make you face your limiting beliefs and make you switch your mind focus. So I'm making this video. This is not the only book that I will advise you to read. I will advise you to look for some books about how to set the boundaries. And especially boundaries when you are disrespected. I kick my device, forgive me. So the number one rule, focus on what you have control over. You said, I love what I do, so every time you do it with enthusiasm. And every time I take a call, I'm asking myself, if I was interpreter to myself, was it good? This is when I know that I did a good job. Dream big, don't give up your dreams, and choose faith over fear. So faith over fear, it means, guys, let's start. I think the main thing that you can worry about during your session or focus on, when I said set a boundaries, you have a specific things that triggers fear on you. When people shout on you, when people scream on you, when they tell you that you're not good interpreter, when they tell you this is horrible interpreter, they tell you this is unacceptable, she doesn't speak the language, I don't understand her, she have an accent. This is the 5 horrible situations that you may have during a call. So I want you to write down for yourself, what do you do when they scream with you? What do you do? Do you scream with them? When they both sides scream with each other, what do you do? When you start interpreting and they shout, both sides, provider or the limited speaking, English speaking person, they shout with you, what do you do? What is your best practices and best protocols and your way of setting boundaries in those situations? The reason that I want you to write it down is because I want you to stick it. I have it there in the other desk that I normally work from there. I have it stick on my table. If they shout with me, what I do? I repeat the pre-session. I repeat, please don't speak together with me. Please, I can hear you, don't shout, it hurts my ears. Please, would you politely lower the volume of your device? If you're not, I can hear this very loudly. Can you please tone down your device? It's maybe your mic. Can you please not speak together with the interpreter? If you want to use the interpreter services, please allow me to read the interpretation. If you want to use the interpreter services, please do not speak with the interpreter. Please do not speak with the interpreter. Please do not speak with the interpreter 3 times. And if they don't get it, I say this is the interpreter speaking. If you speak together with me or interrupt me one more time, I can simply disconnect. Please be respectful. What is your level of tolerating those type of behavior in your calls, and how do you set boundaries there? How do you handle that? Then what do you do if you have a bad sound, if there is a sound on the back? How you handle that? How you request politely, can you turn off the TV, the radio, the music? Can you close the window? Can you go out in a room where is no children screaming? We can wait for you. Sometimes I hear the provider does something, talk to children. I said, okay, take your time, ma'am. We can wait for a few minutes, but I cannot repeat 10 times every sentence. Please take your time. It seems like you have emergency. How do you get control of the things that you can control in polite, respectful, and professional manner? There is no such a thing as somebody screaming at you that you're horrible, indignifying you and putting you down, and you would stick with this call and you will be mentally healthy. Psychological and verbal abuse does affect you as a human being, no matter how strong you think you are. And if you stay 20 minutes when you are verbally abused in a session, you cannot be professional because you're going to be bitter and hurt. So you need to also protect your mental health when you do this job. You cannot sit there and tolerate abuse. You don't have to take this language. You don't have to fight with anyone. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You don't have to tolerate disrespect. You don't have to tolerate name calling. You don't have to tolerate screaming or talking together with you. How do you handle those situations? Because those all things that I mentioned here make a call difficult. How do you handle that? And when I say how, I want you to write it down, each of those. And I do have sticky notes, believe it or not, although I do this job for a very long time. And before I start the day, I just repass them, how I deal with that. I already know how I deal with that. It's just to remind my brain that I don't have to stay under this type of disrespect, abuse, emotional, verbal, screaming, or toxic environment. I don't have to do this. I am not there to prove anything, and I'm not there to argue with anyone. I am there to interpret. And I am there to set up the expectation of the session. Speak shortly, speak clearly, use short phrases in order to show accuracy. This is your job to set up the expectation. It's your business to do that, and you have control on that. Yes, you may still receive a complaint, and this is something you do not have control over, and this is something that you cannot control. So you don't have to worry about it. This eventually will happen. And the only advice is when you talk with the customer service, you listen to them, you don't interrupt them, you take notes, and you ask them for how to improve. This is the best thing that you can do. Yes, indeed, a company can disconnect your contract, but believe it or not, you are going to find another company to provide services for. The world is not going to end with disconnecting of your contract. You will find another client and another and another. So said that if you do work on yourself, and if you do work on your, because this work and this topic that I'm addressing right now, it requires working with your inner fears. And this fear doesn't come from the job. This fear already exists in your life. The anxiety and the fear of confrontation come from somewhere, which is not your job. It comes from your personal intertwining relationship in the family, I don't know, in your childhood, with your parent, where you experience confrontation as something negative, harmful, something that you don't know how to handle. And indeed, confrontation is not pleasant, and setting boundaries is not always comfortable. I do feel uncomfortable sometimes. But learning how to do it is your key to success, and working on yourself is your key to success. So Thank you for this question. My member, I know you would recognize yourself in this video, and I hope this video was useful. If you like to try therapy, I do therapy myself. It really helps me. It's going to help you to focus those fears and confrontational anxiety that you have. If you don't like therapy, you can read different books about fear, confrontation, setting boundaries in a respectful way, how to speak with people when they disrespect you or shout with you, and you can just buy books online and read it and learn from them. I hope this video was useful to you, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.